Never felt that, come on, yeah. Never felt that, come on, yeah. When I never felt that, come on, yeah. You gotta get up.
Okay, 7th graders, here's our first in isolation video, Supreme Court of the United States. We're going to take a look at Chapter 7, Section 4. Supreme Court procedures and decisions. We've talked about terms before, just like you have a school term. The Supreme Court will be in session for 9 months. Now, they're going to be doing different things at different times throughout that term, and some, of course, doing some different things at the same time. All right, we're just going to refer to that as the cert because that's what the people in the know call it. That will make more sense when we listen to our crash course video here just in a second. Latin to make more sure. All that you're doing, if you take a look at that picture in the upper right-hand side, a formal request for the Supreme Court to hear your case. You're not even asking for them to make a particular decision. You're just asking for them to hear. And at this point, you should know that it is the Supreme Court themselves that decides which cases to take and which cases not to take.
Lost your previous appeals but still think that you have an issue worthy of the court's attention, you can petition for a writ of certiorari, which people in the know call the cert, because they're keeping it cash, which is short for casual. For a look at how the court chooses cases, let's go to the thought bubble, or the thubub. A lot of nicknames today, Stan. Or ST. Certiorari is a formal request that the Supreme Court hear your case, but petitioning for a writ is no guarantee of anything. The federal government's chief lawyer, the Solicitor General, is basically like a bouncer at a hot club, if you're old enough to get into a hot club. They screen out a lot of petitions because those cases don't raise a lot of federal law questions or because they've already been decided in other cases. Or they're not wearing good enough shoes to get in the club. If, and it's a big if, your petition is granted, it goes into the cert pool, the first round in which the justices decide which cases they're actually going to decide. The list of cases that will be decided is called the discussion list. For the judges to actually hear the case, called granting certiorari, 4 of the 9 justices have to agree to hear it. This is called the Rule of 4. The discussion of the discussion list and decision about whether or not to grant certiorari happens at the conference, which is like the back of the club where the really well-dressed people go. So the judges have read your petition, and 4 of them have decided that your case is one of about 80 that they will hear. Congratulations! Now you and the side that disagrees with your position have to submit briefs. Briefs are not underwear. Briefs are written legal arguments from each side explaining why the law favors their position. The party bringing the case seeking to overturn the lower court decision is the petitioner. The party that wants the court to uphold or affirm the lower court's decision is called the respondent. The petitioner also files a reply, which attempts to rebut the respondent, which is not a euphemism. After filing all this, you're finally on your way out of the thought bubble. You're on your way to court. Thanks, Thubub. You might think that there would only be 2 briefs in a case, one from each side, and it's true that there must be at least 2. But often there are many, many more briefs, and even boxer briefs. That's what Stan wears. Stan, put your pants on. All undergarments aside, individuals or groups who are not actually parties to the case but have an interest in the outcome can also file amicus curiae, or friend of the court briefs. Amicus briefs often contain different legal, economic, or historical arguments that can sometimes persuade justices and appear in their opinions. They're also one way that interest groups can attempt to influence the Supreme Court. After the briefs have been filed, the court schedules oral arguments, giving them time to read and consider the briefs. Each side gets half an hour to make its case, but this time includes questions from the justices, so most of the time is usually spent answering questions. Imagine a presentation with the most intense teacher you've ever had bombarding you with questions, except that there are 9 teachers. Well, 8, because Clarence Thomas never speaks. After oral arguments, you wait for a decision. The justices then meet in another conference, which is held on a Wednesday or a Friday, because there's good TV the other days. In order for the court to render an official decision, 5 of the 9 justices, a majority, must agree on at least one of the legal arguments that either affirms or overturns the lower court's decision.
Selecting cases. Again, that's up to each individual judge, justice, whether it's about the Constitution or one of the amendments or issues between the states. They are looking for legal reasons, not political reasons, or at least that's what's supposed to happen. We talked about a docket. If you remember, there was a picture of a calendar on my board with Marbury versus Madison written in one of the dates. And that is pretty much the only, well, not the only, but one of the only Supreme Court cases that you're actually going to need to remember what that is, and that establishes the principle of judicial review. And ask yourself, do I know all three parts of judicial review? If not, maybe I should go back and take a look at that. About 10,000 petitions a year. You can see the chart over there on the top right-hand side showing how many cases they choose to take. We've already discussed somewhere between 75, 80, somewhere in that neighborhood, and it is their job to interpret the law. Congress' job is to, yep, good answer, pass laws. The president's job is to, yep, nice job, with enforce laws, and therefore the judicial branch interprets these laws. All right. So all of them will meet, secret meetings. That sounds a lot more spyish, but they're all going to get together, and the American people are not privy, or they're not allowed to hear the conversations that these justices have behind closed doors. They each decide, they each will give their opinion, they'll vote on the ruling. There are 9 justices, so a majority is 5. So you need, so you can win your case 5-4, 6-3, 7-2, 8-1, 9-0. Any of those will work because all you need is a majority. Hey, look, our school bells still work. If you take a look over at the bottom, that is what's going to be on the stand in the Supreme Court. And you can see the timer. You have a green, a yellow, and a red light. If you are a lawyer for either side presenting in front of the Supreme Court, you get 30 minutes. That's it. That's all. And as you get closer, those lights, and when that red light comes on, if you're in the middle of a sentence, you immediately stop, thank them for their time, and you sit down. Nobody gets 31 minutes. Stare decisis, let the decision stand, which basically means, and we've talked about precedents before, what have previous courts decided? So if I have a case that's very similar to a case that happened 50 years ago, I'm going to take a look at how they decided it 50 years ago, and for the most part, they're going to make the same decisions. Now, there are changes because people's attitudes change, social conditions change, ideas change. The best example is Plessy versus Ferguson. American society and the Supreme Court felt that segregation was okay. 1954, Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education, social conditions, and at least the Supreme Court, if not all Americans, decided that segregation, not okay. Opinions is just, why is it I decided, why did I vote the way I voted? The majority opinion is going to be the winning side. That's either going to come from the Chief Justice, or if the Chief Justice votes against it, it's going to be from the Supreme Court Justice who's served the longest on the court. A concurring opinion. Yes, I'm voting on the winning side, but not for the same legal reasons everybody else is. So you're going to write a concurring opinion. And then you don't have to, but if you strongly disagree with the courts, the majority, the winners, you can write a dissenting opinion and tell the world why you think they're wrong. And everybody that votes against the winners can write a dissenting opinion if they want. That looks like that's the end of the chapter. We'll talk more about what it is we need to do going forward.